What? Am I that awkward? I know I'm not great at expressing my feelings, but there's no need for doubt. I can't think of anyone I'm closer to. Even my family.
Okay, wow, this is awkward. Hey guys, Centurion here at ESO Vault. Today we're just one day away from the announcement about this year's upcoming content, and I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited. My gut is telling me we're in for some really cool stuff this year. And I honestly can't say that I'm basing that on anything in particular. I just really like last year's content, and I'm happy with stuff the developers have been doing. So yeah, I've got a good feeling about it. Of course, there's a lot of conjecture about it going on, but for my part, I'm just going to wait until Friday. Today I'm actually going to be looking back, not forward, because I got a build for one of the game's original classes, the Dragon Knight. Today's build is called Ruin. It's a 2-bar setup that uses super easy to get gear, but will definitely perform at a decent level. I want to point out that this isn't a meta build. There's definitely stuff out there that will do more damage if you're going to go the min-max route. Variety remains one of the unspoken goals of the channel, so I'm always going to be highlighting different builds with different gear, skills, and play styles. Some will be easier to play, others harder. Some have difficult to get gear, others easier, but I always give you options there. So if you're really interested in that middle game variety like I am, and you want to experience all that the game has to offer, stick around. Alright, let's look at the character sheet for today's build, Ruin. This character is an Imperial, and honestly I forgot that he was an Imperial. And that should give you a clue as to how important race is to your gameplay. If you gotta have the absolute top DPS race, it's basically a tie between Dark Elf and Khajiit. Orc is pretty close behind, followed by High Elf. I'm using Lavafoot soup and salt rice as my food buff, and I never go anywhere or do anything without checking how much time is left on that. For those of you that are new, when you get around to running dungeons, always check the timer on your food buff before you start. I've seen food buffs expire at some really bad moments. Now you can run other stuff if you need a little more health, and actually I'm running Orzorga's Tripe Trifle Pocket in the gameplay at the beginning and end of the video. That gives me the same stamina regeneration, but puts points into health instead of stamina. That's probably my favorite when I need to face tank something. I'm using the Thief Mundus for extra crit chance, as always. If you're new to the game, you can have fun figuring out where that Mundus stone is. Maybe some kind guild will take you under their wing and they'll have that in their guild hall. Up top, I've got the obligatory 64 points in stamina, and I really favor stamina builds on the channel, but I'll sprinkle in some Magicka builds. I think I did a Magicka Nightblade already. All these stats look pretty typical. Stamina recovery is right in that sweet spot that you need for dungeon content. Weapon damage is a little low, but anymore a lot of sets impact my damage differently than just a simple buff to weapon damage. Things that buff this directly are going to be potions of weapon power, which this build requires, a unique Dragon Knight buff, which I'll talk about in the skills section, plus group buffs like Warhorn and other things. Weapon critical is at 43%, and I like that to be over 40, or things that depend on crit stop working. Alright, let's move on to skills, which are always the most important thing. I'll start on the back bar because that's where the rotation starts. This is a two-handed sword. I lead off with Flames of Oblivion for my class skills, and that launches fireballs at enemies every 5 seconds. Next I'll go ahead and use Stampede for the two-handed skill line. Stampede is a gap closer that does damage around the target as well. That area damage of Stampede is also going to give me extra weapon damage by proccing the glyph on my two-handed sword. That sword has to have the infused trait and a weapon damage enchantment to get the job done. Alright, next I'll use Carve, which is another two-handed skill. Carve will hit nearby enemies in an arc in front of me, doing bleed damage, and it has a chance to proc the Hemorrhaging status effect. Hemorrhaging does a small amount of damage over a brief period of time, but it's possible to coax more damage out of this and other status effects, and I'll revisit that in the gear section. Finally, I'll cast Eruption on the ground around the target. Eruption is another DK class skill that does okay damage, but more importantly it gives me the Minor Brutality buff, which increases my weapon damage. This buff is unique to the Dragon Knight and will apply to anyone I'm grouped with as well. I've got my usual heal, which is Resolving Vigor from the Assault skill line. That's a PvP skill, so head to Cyrodiil to get that one. Last is my ultimate, Dragon Knight Standard, which buffs me while doing big damage to nearby enemies. It's stationary though, so I want to give some thought to when and where I drop it down. Let's switch to the main bar, which is my dual wield bar. This is where I'll use Noxious Breath, which is really strong damage over time, plus it applies Major Breach, which lowers the target's resistance. That's another Dragonknight class skill. Now I'll use my single target dot, and that's Venomous Claw. This is really strong poison damage. I can only hit one target at a time on this, but I can use it on multiple targets. Now I spin up Deadly Cloak from the dual wield skill line. Deadly Cloak reduces my damage from area attacks while dealing damage to enemies around me. Now it's time for my class spammable, Stone Giant. I rip flaming rocks from the ground and hurl them at enemies. The first cast of this is an area damage, and the next 3 throw the flaming rocks that now encircle me. I'll use this skill 8 times. Nice thing is, 6 out of 8 can hit distant targets, so I've got ranged capability with this. I've got Molten Whip slotted passively for extra damage, and I have the Fighter's Guild skill Flawless Dawnbreaker for the same reason. Molten Whip boosts my weapon damage as I cast Ardent Flame abilities, and Dawnbreaker is just a flat buff and a cheap ultimate when I need it. Alright, that's it for skills. I'll do a quick fight where I show you the rotation. This is a static rotation, so I just go through it in the order I described and then start all over again at the beginning.
I sometimes wonder what it must be like for Daedra, going through their lives with no real sense of time passing them by, where loss and death are annoying trivialities. No wonder they feel powerful and hollow.
Hollow, eh? I want to see what's on the inside, even if it's only ice cubes. I use my weapon power potion, then starting on the back bar, I cast Flames of Oblivion, Stampede, Carve, and Eruption. I use my ultimate and swap bars. Then I use Noxious Breath, Venomous Claw, and the Deadly Cloak. I use my spammable 8 times, then it's back to where I started and I repeat the whole thing. I use Resolving Vigor after the bar swap. When I use Stone Giant the first time, it's an AoE. Then I have 3 circling balls of Molten Rock to throw. That's how I arrived at 8 repetitions. Plus it makes my static rotation just about the right length. Nothing but ice. I'll use combat metrics and pull up the damage. 44,000 points of damage per second. That'll get the job done unless I want to get to the top of the leaderboards. Remember that my weapon damage on my character sheet was at 3,800. Here it peaked out at 6,800. Throw me a Warhorn and I'm really in business. Over on the right up top it shows I had 3 stacks of Seething Fury up 88% of the time. Seething what? Seething Fury. That's the buff to weapon damage I got by casting Ardent Flame abilities while having Molten Whip slotted. I had Minor Brutality up 94% of the time. That's my unique Dragonknight buff, and that came from casting Eruption. Alright, let's look at the gear. I may have snuck in a couple of high-end pieces, but the 2 5-piece sets are easy. First set is Order's Wrath. I'm sure you're getting tired of seeing this, but when I want to talk about easy-to-get gear, this crafted set is always first on my mind. This is from the High Isle, and you can make it or have somebody make it for you. I have this set front barred, and that means it's on these 2 weapons but not on my back bar. My main dagger is Nirnhone with a flame damage enchantment, and the other is Charge with a poison clip. That's the meta way to set up the daggers, and Nirnhone is increasing weapon damage, while Charge increases status effect damage. Don't get these backwards. Nirn goes on the main hand, and Charge goes on the off hand. On the back bar, I have a Venomous Greatsword. The Venomous Smite set attaches a poison AoE to my target, and that target will damage other enemies around it. Single target damage is okay, but this set really shines when there are multiple targets. The proc can happen once every 15 seconds, so it works well with the timing of my rotation. It also works well with the passive skill, World and Ruin, which increases my damage with flame and poison attacks. That's in your Dragonknight skills kit. And I don't usually talk about passives, but take all the passives in your 3 main skill lines. Remember, I've got to have the infused trait and a weapon damage enchantment on the sword if I want the bonus weapon damage. This set comes from Western Skyrim, and if you can run around looting chests, this overland set can easily be yours. Okay, next up is the Zon monster set, and with that I snuck in some gear that's not easy to get. Don't have this? No worries. Something like Stormfist will do just as well most of the time. Zon comes from the Fanglair dungeon, and if you want this set, go for it. If you're not there yet, swap it for something else. Having each 5-piece set on only 1 bar allows me to wear not only a monster helm, but also a mythic item. I'm using the Harpooner's Wading Kilt, which is a solid choice for dungeon damage dealers. It's not so hot in solo content, though. This is a stacking set, and if I get hit, I lose my stack, so I really need to have a tank around to use this. This didn't contribute any significant damage to that fight I showed you for that reason. I've got venomous jewelry here, where I did change the traits on the 2 rings to bloodthirsty, and then I put a weapon damage glyph on all 3 pieces. Run the robust trait if you have to, and just buy weapon damage glyphs and put them on there. It'll work fine. Body pieces here are medium with mostly the Divine's trait. Throw in 1 light piece if you want to take advantage of the Undaunted Metal passive. Okay, that's the gear. The 5-piece sets are easy. Get the rest as you can. Work on the skills and rotation. That'll take you further than anything else. Blue champion points here are Fighting Finesse, Fighting Aura, Thaumaturge, and Wrathful Strikes. And that takes us into the home stretch.
I can't stand goblins, or snakes, or boats. They all make me want to retch, for different reasons. The less we deal with any of them, the better.
Now you tell me. Alright, teleport it is. I thought it might be nice to travel the old-fashioned way. Well, that's it for today, guys. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, be sure to hit that like button. And if you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. I'm Centurion, and you've been watching ESO Vault. Have a great day, and enjoy your adventures in Tamriel.